At the start of this special period, 95% of Cubans were connected to the national electric grid. The other 5% lived in remote areas. Photovoltaic and wind energy are too expensive to meet much of Cuba's energy needs. But for areas not connected to the grid, small-scale wind and hydro systems, as well as solar panels, are used. Priority is given to schools and clinics.
Recently, more than 2,000 rural schools were supplied with solar panels to have electricity. It was less costly to give them the solar panels rather than to connect them to the grid.
In Los Tumbos, solar panels power the school, clinic, community center, even people's homes.
They have the panels up on the roof, and they're recharging the light battery right now, compact fluorescence. They can put this radio on, and this is another panel that's her son's, who lives right there.
Small solutions have been developed throughout Cuba, such as using the sun to preheat water.
People in Cuba used to shower with heat water. So they use traditional oil or energy, whatever they have, to heat water. So if we can have solar heaters, it's better.
But when you obtain the water from the solar heater, it is 60 degrees. You can save the half of the fuel you use to heat the water to boil.
Before the crisis, Cuba relied on imported fuel oil to generate electricity. Without this, they had to modify their power plants to burn their poor-quality domestic crude oil.
Our crude oil is a bad thing for environment, but we had no choice. It's a matter of live or die.
They also began using crop waste to generate electricity.
Sugar mills have been turned into power plants because you mill the sugar and then you have the bagasse. You burn the fibers, you produce heat, and then you produce electricity. So you can turn a sugar mill during the season or after the season into an additional power plant.
And right now in Cuba, during the time of harvest, which is about 3 or 4 months during the year, 30% of the energy that's generated in Cuba comes from the renewable source of biomass.
So this is what we call the energetic sovereignty. We do not depend on all imports to produce electricity.
The problem is what the people said about Cuba in the States is not what we are doing here. Many people there think how they can survive if they don't have anything. Okay, come here and you can see how we can survive. And in this way we can begin to understand each other and to know how to think.
Mankind is burning in 1 century all the oil accumulated by nature during millions of years. And that is absurd, completely absurd. I don't see that countries who depend largely on imported oil are thinking about alternative sources of energy. They are just planning for the next week.
If I'm in Cuba, I say, people, we have problems. We must turn off all the lights that we are not using. And everybody said, okay, we are going to turn off. But if I say in the United States, people, we must turn off all the lights because we need, everybody say, why, if I pay? The problem is we must change how we think.
You know, the idea of peak oil is that things are going to change and there's going to be less. I think Cubans understand that on an international, global level because island people have that innate sense of a limited resource. And also they realize in terms of energy, if they want to be politically independent, they had to be economically independent. To be economically independent, you have to be energy independent.
Is oil going to last in the next 10 to 15 years? Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe in Cuba we find an enormous oil tank underground for 50 years more. Or wonderful, we have 50 years more. But the security of supply is getting more risky day by day.
And there is also this hope to find in the deep waters of the Mexican Gulf good petrol, but people don't think about that as an asset. No, we're going to improve their life here. No, we're going to sell it, because people know that we don't need that to live. You know what I mean? Okay, we need money to develop, but it's like something to sell, not something to use or to waste.
The sun was able to maintain the life in Earth during millions of years. Only the problem is now when we arrived and we changed the way we use the energy. The problem is if the sun has been enough to sustain the life, and now we cannot sustain the kind of society we have in our planet. The problem is with our society, not with the energy, not with the war of the energy.
Quisiera darte, mi niña, un viaje a la luna, que todo aquello que anhelas pudiera ser.
So there are infinite small solutions. You fix one little problem here, one little problem there, and life is better. You think globally, you act locally. This is very important, because otherwise you give the impression of people that this is United Nations, presidents, scientists, and they don't have to do anything, that they will fix the problem. But people have to start from scratch and start to do small things, baby steps. Crises or changes or problems can trigger many of these things, that these are sustainable, alternative, whatever it's called, but it's basically adapting. We are adapting to changes, and that's the success of the human beings.
Te doy mi pan que está mojado en el café, te doy la sal que el mar ha dejado en mi piel.
What we must know is that the world is changing, and we must change the way we saw the world. And one of the things we need is more friendship, more love, because we have also only one world. The world is only one, and it's for all of us.
Te doy mi pan, te doy mi paz, te doy mi Dios, te doy mi sal.
I think we can learn a lot from each other and reflect more on how to be happy with less, and how you really don't need that much, to be happy. I think that that's a challenge, a world challenge. Cuba has modest experience that, maybe some other people could learn from. And I think it will be a time for sharing, a time for cooperation, and a time for more solidarity and for working together. I think maybe we'll have a better world.